And all of a sudden, I was like, wow, we're actually changing people's lives. Something made me feel so good inside, and I didn't voice it anymore. I was just like, man, this is like some cool, this is like a mission. Anything and anything that needed to be done within the company, I did it. They said we should make like a little VIP green room so when we have guests, they can come hang out. Everyone's gone, I go and do it all myself. When they came back, I was out of town. I had gone to an event. And they said, Bruce must have come in here over the holidays.
Anybody can really start doing little things when no one's around and do them like you own the place. But if you can learn to develop this skill, no matter where you're at, of just providing over-the-top value, sometimes you just need to become so invaluable to a founder that they can't value, and you get to rise with them. The journey becomes yours, and you guys go dominate the world together, right?
Yeah, a psychiatrist I admire, he once said, do you want to be a success? Make your boss a screaming success. Doors will just slam in your whole life. Like whoever's above you, make their world beautiful.
But this is one of these truths and separators in life that turns you into something different when you decide to take that extreme ownership. All right. So one of the things we do, Bruce, just a little tee up. You know, I like that we can just be organic and raw. Stuff hits. We're not overly prepared, but one of the kind of common themes on Man on a Mission is usually we start like the place we out of the gate start. Not always, but generally one of these themes is out of the sort of the depths of hell. So many of the best leaders out there, the best stories out there, they come from a place where they've somehow someone's turned real pain into progress, pain into winning. And I love the connection that we make there of sort of the downs in someone's life, those versions of yourself that you may not recognize in the mirror or wherever the trauma was. Doesn't mean everyone has it who wins in life, but 9 out of 10 times it is a common theme that someone taps into something so beautiful and really leverages that pain. So that's one of the places that we sort of steer it, and we just build up and extract gold from there. And I know you have a story. I read enough about you to know that, when you come from a family of alcoholics and all that, man, there's a little boy or a little girl that's trapped in all of us, and they carry our best and I think our worst. And somehow I think it's how people leverage that, whether it's good or bad, somehow they're leveraging that, and it is energy. And so that's where I feel like the story, I think, has real impact. And then we just extract the gold of you winning in life. But it's cool to have such a household name like Quest Nutrition as part of this particular story. It's and especially your role in the company, helping it grow, building equity in the company. It'll be cool to take someone from the low Bruce to, hanging out with Magic Johnson and The Rock.
Right.
Yeah. It's pretty cool. So anyway.
And you have Matt here to check sanity for all of us?
Yeah.
Matt's the guy, yeah. He keeps us all this bizarre energy over here in alignment. So it's good. It's a good temperament.
Yeah, I had a private practice as a therapist for years, and then now I do executive life coaching for entrepreneurs and business owners.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm actually probably a lot more alike Eric than I'm not, but we pair well together. It's fun. So.
Yeah, I tell you, if we end up touching, I went and talked to a shrink. It's not appropriate to say shrink, but therapist.
Do it all day. Yeah,
that's not politically
after
correct.
I was involved with a shooting, but I'll tell you, I said they put me on the desk after a shooting when I was a cop, and she said, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I'm good." I said, "The biggest stress is I'm working the desk, which is more stressful than working the street."
Yeah.
So that was it.
Yeah. You're like, what are you talking about? Working the desk kills me.
Yeah. There's certain people, man, that are made for action. You know what I mean? Bruce is definitely one of those.
There's a certain, like a temperamental propensity of people.
And Bruce, I want to make sure that I'm not butchering your last name. It's Cardenas, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, I'm saying it right. I didn't know if it was Cardenas.
Where do you live
Latin
now,
flair.
Bruce? Before we get formally rolling,
I live in L.A.
Okay.
Marina Del Rey, basically.
Oh, that's great. And that's most of your career was based out of L.A., right? I mean, that was.
Yeah. I got out of Marine Corps, got mad in New Jersey, and then I spent most of it in L.A.
Yeah,
awesome, man.
Awesome.
I'll be down there for a few months in Laguna Beach, so maybe we can get together, do something. I'd love to catch up with you somehow while I'm down there. So
yeah, for sure.
I'll be down there January, February. So
you're staying for the whole time? Yeah.
I'm going to escape this Coeur d'Alene winter. So
North Idaho gray.
Right.
Even a couple months it's a game changer to just get away for a few months. So looking forward to that. Actually, you ever been to Coeur d'Alene where we're at?
I have been. It became. I don't know if it's still popular, but I had
yeah.
more cops and firemen retired there for a period of time than I could count.
It's the number
yeah.
one. This is the number one place in America for retired police officers. Actually, there's one town in particular. It's Sandpoint, Idaho, but it's all relative here in North Idaho. Mark Furman actually was one of the kind of the original guys that kind of popularized in that police world. This North Idaho community, there's more guns up here in North Idaho from people that know how to use them than maybe any community in America, and I love it. I think it's genius to set a foundation in a place like Coeur d'Alene in case this whole thing goes to shit. This community will have each other's backs, and you're welcome, Bruce.
It's a
Come on
safe
up.
place to sleep at night.
Yeah, Mark's actually funny. We crossed paths. I was a spokesperson at the chief's office during the OJ trial, so I know Mark well.
Wow,
Oh, interesting,
very cool.
And really, it's interesting. He went on and did some great things with his career, even though he had kind of a, they kind of tried to give him a bad rap for the trial.
Yeah,
He ended up solving like the some river murders or something. I can't remember what they're called.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of people that are actually close with Mark Furman, and everyone raves about the character of the man. One slip up in your younger years, especially when language was different. Growing up in the 50s and 60s, it doesn't mean someone's a bad person. I'm not justifying anything, but at the end of the day, like, they just vilified him off of one audio clip, which is bullshit.
Yeah.
The whole thing was bullshit. But they really did try to destroy that guy's career. And, people that actually really know the real him, he was a giver for sure. And he served the community of Los Angeles so well. Anyway. Cool. Well, it's cool. Let's, I guess we'll just kick the show off. Ready?
Yeah.
Do we got a 1, 2, 3 from the producer over here? Mr. Producer, you good?
Thank you, sir.
He's eating a protein bar. What is that one? He's eating a protein bar, Bruce.
Some random brand.
Cliff.
What is it? Cliff.
Okay.
Like Cliff Bar? Is that what it is? A builder bar. Cliff Builder Bar. Okay, you're eating the wrong brand, brother. I gotta.
He's not worried about his carb count and sugar count. It's all good.
He's skinny as a. No, he's trying to gain weight. Okay. All right, you guys. Hey, welcome to Man on a Mission. We got a really incredible guest today. Probably one of the most. I always talk about these guys that are super connected. This is one of the best connectors in America. Yeah. There's a few names come to mind. Bruce is one of them. Bruce was the chief communications officer for the billion-dollar brand Quest Nutrition. I remember eating Quest bars like literally like 5 of them a day. I'd buy them by the box. I remember the flavors I'd get. It's cool now to be talking to someone that was in the game. I don't know if it was from the very beginning, Bruce, but you were there for, I think, for the majority of that company all the way to the exit, right?
Correct. Almost from the very beginning.
Sure. Yeah, and in the background before that, super interesting. Can't wait to dive in it. In the pre-show banter, we were just talking about some names that we have mutual friends and alignments with, but he comes from the police world. I live here in North Idaho. This is the #1 community in America for retired police officers. So Bruce instantly brought that up when we started talking. It's really cool to figure out how you have a connection with someone, where the alignments are, the similarities. But Bruce is someone that is literally one of the most connected people in America. I'm literally looking at photos of Bruce hanging out with The Rock, with Arnold Schwarzenegger. You name it, I'm pretty sure Bruce has been near it. If you think about the industry that he came up in of fitness and nutrition and that whole world, that big, bold world out there, being part of that powerhouse company like Quest, it connects you to some incredible people. I think, Bruce, and just to kick this show off, I'm going through my notes here, my show notes here on you, and did they call you, was it the mayor of Quest, or what was it, the mayor of...
The mayor. I never made it to governor, but the mayor, which I guess
mayor's pretty damn
right?
good.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Well, we'll be cool. It's going to be cool to get your backstory on this, Bruce. But anyway, welcome to the show.
Yeah, welcome, Bruce.
Thank you.
Me and Matt are excited to have you. So one of the places we generally start, you don't have to, this is kind of a free-for-all. We could talk politics, we could talk winning, personal development.
Relationships, all the things you're savvy at, yeah.
Somehow we start, before we start the extraction of the gold, we usually go to the lows in someone's life. Like, where was that pain point? I constantly am preaching this concept of the best people I know, literally, somehow they've turned that pain into this massive progress that you see today. And I love to tap into that thread because I think, especially as I speak to people that feel hopeless or feel like this is my commitment to America, to this country, to freedom in itself, is being able to extract that pain and say, no, it's okay. This is actually a gift. Let's reframe this. And as I continually pull stories away from people that are inspiring, and then we talk about the winning and how it looks on the flip side of that, it's just a beautiful place for a man on a mission to start. So I know you're on a mission, and I know you got a story. So where would you take us, Bruce, if we were going to tee this up? Take us to a Bruce that no one knows, that has literally some of maybe your worst demons trapped inside him.
Yeah. No, thank you very much for having me. I would say, and I haven't really talked about it often. I talked about it in an interview with LA Style Magazine, but I didn't realize how much more it's been coming out. So I grew up in a very, very rural town in New Jersey called Highbridge. I think population is 2,000. It's probably 2,000 now even. Steel mill town, but it's I was one of 5 kids, middle kid, very middle class. My father was, he would have been called a workaholic then. Now he'd be called an entrepreneur. But he, had his own construction business. But alcoholism ran deep in our family, and I really wasn't aware of it when I was a kid. I knew my grandmother had a drinking problem, and I knew my mom, growing up, she'd fall asleep every night on the couch drinking red wine. I didn't really know it was a problem until my father addressed it. I think maybe I was 15 or 16 and said, "Hey, we have a family problem. Your mom needs to get help." And I'm like, "What do you mean help? Like, she has a couple glasses of wine at night." Like, I thought that, why would that not be normal, right? And it really was a turning point because my dad's like, if she doesn't get help, I don't know what's going to happen with our family. So she got help, and believe it or not, she's remained an AA member for the remainder of her life and spoke very proudly of it. Now, sadly, my little brother had a drinking problem, and he almost got kicked out of college. He went to law school, but ran up big debts on my dad's credit cards and drinking and partying. And fast forward, now he's 50 years old, and he still has a recurring drinking problem. He was sober for 20 years, and now he's drinking again and gambling. My older brother, he died a little early from liver disease, another drinking problem. So it surrounded me my entire life, and it wasn't until I was an adult. And by the way, I hadn't had a taste of alcohol except maybe a sip of my dad's beer. When you're a kid, and said that's pretty shitty. I got my first. I was drunk my first time when I was 22 in the Marine Corps. I was in Okinawa, Japan, and my buddies brought me out for some fruity drinks. And I woke up with kind of a weird feeling, room spinning, and I said, I don't know if that's for me or not. So I've somehow been able to divert the bullet of alcoholism and drugs. I've never tried any drugs besides steroids when I was in the Marine Corps, but never drank, maybe been buzzed 6 times in my life. Now, obviously, I think if I was a therapist, there's probably something deeper to this, right? I have obviously avoided that bullet, probably from everything I've seen, even some of the people I've dated and relationships I had where, people get a DUI and they're sick. And so I think it was a bad place, and I didn't know how bad it was until I grew up. And even now, my son, who's a two-tour combat vet, has a major drinking problem. He fights with it. He doesn't believe in AA, but he's going through the VA now to try and get help. But he drinks every single night, and it's a struggle because he lives with me now, and
That's tough.
And it's a tough conversation because I don't, it's hard when you don't relate because I don't drink, right? And I think, why don't you just stop drinking? What's the problem? Just stop. And so I'm not in his shoes. But on the other hand, I have my own obsessions, right? I work out. I'm addicted to work and building brands and being an entrepreneur. So I have my own addictions. It's just, I guess I justify it being healthier, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there could be good addictions and bad ones for sure.
That's a tough one to be a...
Being a kid around alcoholism somehow, like it does create those neural pathways as your young mind is developing that really, for most people, I think, they actually don't turn that into gold. But then there's some people that do. I don't know what the thread is that gets people to take sort of the connection between that child and then the decisions they're making today and those experiences.
This may be a thread for you. It's fun to read about you, Bruce, and some of your accomplishments. One of your superpowers or... And I don't know whether this actually links or not to your youth or your past, obviously, but oftentimes people who grow up in an alcoholic situation or any sort of dysfunctional pattern, which is the majority of people maybe, many times you get like a sophisticated capacity to read people, relate, connect out of necessity, and it's really cool, just reading your whole bio from being a Marine, LAPD, your security consulting, Quest Nutrition, that whole story, how you got into that. But there was one quote you focus on tactical solutions for building impactful relationships, like your capacity to relate to people, to do it with a good heart, to really connect. I don't know what you would say as it may relate to your past, but that's something I've observed previously when I was a therapist and now a coach, that oftentimes if you're in a semi-dysfunctional family system, you kind of get savvy with connecting with human beings. Can you relate to that at all?
Oh, 100%. And I think part of what I think came out of my family situation, my father, I stuck more towards him, and he was an entrepreneur and he worked hard. And I think my work ethic came early on. I had a paper out when I was a little boy,
Yeah.
stock boy in a grocery store. I always worked, and I kind of became a little, not obsessed, but I liked having money. I
Yeah.
liked having, even when I was 14 or 15 years old, having $1,000 in my bedroom.
Yeah.
So I turned that into a good thing. But I did quickly learn about connecting with people. Like I felt, and people ask me now as an adult, like I didn't go to school for marketing or PR, but I kind of just inherently realized that everything from the Marine Corps to LAPD to the bodyguard business, it's all relationships.
Yeah.
Even when I was a cop, I made relationships with good people and bad people to better understand how they function and how they operated, and how I can have a better, easier career and job of things. And I really mastered that in the bodyguard business, on how to communicate and how to observe and read people. And really my listening skills really came into play throughout all this.
Yeah. One of the things I recognize in people that like really have an influential pull is their ability to quickly build rapport. And that's one of the most like clearest things that I see when I started getting near you, getting into your world, Bruce, is your ability to create rapport. It's really a superpower. And I think that most people don't really understand the savviness and like almost it's like an art form, like being able to build rapport, quickly build trust, then putting yourself in a position to really execute on whatever you can out of that's going to serve the person first. Somehow there's always an exchange of value that's sort of unsaid as you're saying, should I trust this person? Should I not? Are they trying to pitch me something? Like most people don't realize beneath every connection, there's underlying factors, and people that really understand business, how to persuade, how to get someone to see your way, like all that. It's all important if you're going to try to build anything worthwhile. And here we are talking to the communications officer at one of the biggest nutrition companies in the world. A $1 billion cash exit is something that's really profound. We're jumping a little bit ahead now, but we're talking to someone that developed these skills. Where do you think your ability to understand this art of rapport came from?
I think honestly, it started out with my dad, because I saw how he communicated and how he was a big servant leader like I am. While he had his construction business, he always stayed engaged. He was our assistant football coach and baseball coach. He wasn't the main coach because he just did it really to support the family, right? To be around the kids.
Sure.
But he was the first one that when the community center needed to be built, he, with his own money, built it. And there's still a trail named after him and my mom. It was an old railroad trail that he converted to a hiking trail, 20-mile trail. So I think I watched him, how he communicated people, how he treated people. And one of my big takeaways is I connect with people. I have no motive, or I have no ulterior motive. I'm not connecting with you to say, by the way, here's my card. Can we do business? Sometimes I connect with someone. I don't even ask what they do. And I tell my friends this. I said, I take friends of mine to networking events. I said, don't be so quick to just be like, here's my card. If you're selling real estate, let's do business. Just get to know somebody. Totally. Your career or your business doesn't even have to come up in the first conversation.
Yeah.
And that's what I've really learned is I just rather have authentic relationship with somebody. And maybe that comes back tenfold 10 years from now, right? They'll be like, I remember that guy. He was nice to me at that event or whatever. And I Googled him and found out he did something. So I always do this. I meet people with no expectations other than being a good human being.
It's a good way to not be let down.
That knowing your story, this would be, I think, a really relatable entry point to you for the listener. It's because, again, Quest Nutrition had this big exit. You got equity and value out of it, but it didn't start there. You didn't foresee that. You didn't. No. You didn't. It wasn't like a master plan. In fact, it was interesting to read about you, how you were talking about, like, I didn't have an advanced degree in this area. I didn't have deep expertise, yet somehow I had an opportunity to provide them value. So go to the beginning, because it sounded like it just started out like you just being you, like pure intentions and.
But he was a cop first, right?
Yeah, like frame that part of your life. Yeah, where were you?
One more time.
Go back and frame where you were in life when you kind of got involved with Quest, and I don't know if you were running your security consultation business at that time.
Yeah, I had been a police officer for 10 years, but I left to run the security business, which is doing quite well. And I just one day in the gym, Shannon, who goes by Quest Creator on social media, was in the gym, and her husband worked out there. And as you get to know your gym friends, right? Hey, small talk. One day she said, hey, obviously you work out, Bruce. I want to give you a couple of protein bars. We just started this company. They only had 2 flavors, peanut butter and vanilla almond crunch. And I remember I tried them. Saw her the next week sometime and said, those bars are really amazing. Hey, I'm doing this celebrity golf tournament in Riviera Country Club. If you have product, I could probably get it in some people's hands. I have no idea what, I was like, hey, they look like they're nice people. The product's nice. So I got it. I brought it to this event. I told my friend who was doing the PR there, Cheryl, I said, listen, my friends gave me a couple boxes of bars. They were such a small company. Those boxes of bars were like priceless. It wasn't like they were selling on Amazon or anything yet. They were like real deal, expensive.
Yeah.
Got them in some celebrities' hands. No social media, by the way. There was no Instagram, no Facebook. Just started. Yeah. People were at that time doing blogs and those kind of things. And I had enough sense to say, well, let me get some pictures. Which I had a BlackBerry then. The iPhone had not been out, or just I don't think it was even out yet. And she was kind enough to get some video from some people on the red carpet trying it. So I sent them the content, which I didn't know what the word content meant then, right? Yeah. And I just sent them some stuff, and fast forward, I see him at the gym again, and they're like, that was so nice of you to do that. And I said, well, I'm also doing the security on the set of Extra with Mario Lopez if you want to get me some product. So they kept getting me product, and I kept getting it in people's hands from Mario Lopez, who ended up shouting it out on TV, giving it out to the audience. Jessica Simpson was an early client. And I thought, well, this is pretty easy. I'm doing this bodyguard business. And hey, by the way, all I would really say, because I never really like crossing lines, I would just say, hey, friends of mine own this company if you want to check it out.
Sure.
So it evolved to the point where Ron, the chairman, I went out to visit him in the office. When I say they're in the hood, it was this little industrial park with no signage on their front door. As a matter of fact, the signage from some other company never even changed the sign. It was such a shitty building. I go inside, and your average, probably the size of a master bedroom, there's eight IKEA-sized desks like you get for your kid, except adults sitting in them because they want to maximize the space. So they had two offices. One was R&D, and one was like marketing and sales. And I thought, I literally left thinking, wow, they probably won't be in business in 6 months. They're cool people, but they probably won't. I mean, so when I say there was no expectation, I literally thought, oh, their bars are great, but shit. Yeah. Wow. I don't think they'll be around. So I'll be honest with you. I just kept helping them. And then one day Ron took me to lunch and said, hey, man, we're stealing from you. You're bringing us this tremendous value. And I said, yeah, but the protein, you're giving me protein bars. They go, no, let's not be silly here. You're bringing us ridiculous value. We're not. And they would even, one of the guys would email me, say, hey, there's this opportunity. I would pay with my own credit card. I would set up the event, and I'd just say, hey, Friday, I need to pick up like 6 boxes of bars. I'm going to go do this bodybuilding show or something. So they were kind of like, who are you? Like, you're either working for like the enemy or like you're just a good human being. I said, well, I hope I'm a good human being. 9 months into that, me just helping them, like an unpaid intern, right? If you want to look at it that way, even though I had my own successful business, they said, we're putting you on the payroll starting Friday. I'm going to make up a number. It was maybe like 50 or 60 grand. It was, that's an average American salary, right? Sure. But it wasn't going to change my life. I was like, oh, that's cool. You don't have to. And they said, no, just keep doing what you do. Give it to charity if you want. But what happened was, and I swear this is instant, it happened in my brain. The work ethic thing kicked in with my father. Like, I'm in my brain, I'm thinking, man, that's a lot of money, Dad. Like, I now need to really start proving myself, even though I was, right? Yeah. So I split my day. I'd go to my bodyguard business and run that, and I'd go to the office at Quest in the afternoon and spend 4 or 5 hours. And after a while, it literally, I don't know what happened. I wish this on everyone. I hope everyone finds their why in life. Yeah. What happened was people started writing us saying, hey, I lost 30 pounds over the last 2 months, 3 months, whatever. It's been my go-to snack. It's really saved my life. And literally, I want to say I could get chills when I think about it. When you read some of these blogs about people like, I got celiac disease, I'm borderline diabetic, I'm obese. And all of a sudden, I was like, wow, we're actually changing people's lives. Don't get me wrong, the bodyguard business was great, right? Serving people. I've always served people, but something made me feel so good inside, and I didn't voice it to anyone. I was just like, man, this is like a mission. Yeah. And I just did more and more and more, and it evolved to where, and one thing I tell people, and by the way, if you want to stop me, anything that needed to be done within the company, I did it. There was no, like, one guy did R&D, one of the founders, and one was in finance. So they just did their things. Every time I saw something need to be done, I just did it. And that means from going to the store buying trash cans. Oh, wow. And so I'll tell you one quick takeaway. When over the holidays that we shut down, that long holiday between like Christmas Eve and after New Year's, and they had mentioned, hey, we should convert this. This is we moved into our second building, so it was a little nicer than the first one. They said we should make like a little VIP green room so when we have guests, they can come hang out. And I was like, oh, that's cool. Everyone's gone. I go and do it all myself. The paint, the carpet. I paid for it all myself, put a big screen TV on the wall. And when they came back, I was out of town. I had gone to an event. And they said, Bruce must have come in here over the holidays.
Wow.
Which I didn't know that till someone told me, but it wasn't
Profound.
like, who did this? They're like, Bruce must have come
They
in.
knew.
So, yeah. So, there was just something about them, the culture, their drive, their desire to do good things. And I keep saying there was still no promise of anything other than, yeah, they're cool company.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is good.
So much gold. Yeah.
One of the things that because I've always had sort of young employees around me and staff, and one of the things that I try to communicate to and anyone really, especially starting out, this is a great storyline, and Bruce just teed it up so perfectly, is anybody can really start doing little things when no one's around, and do them like you own the place. Started curating and carrying the way that it's just rare, right? Especially for someone that's on the clock, they're on the payroll, they're 9 to 5, the whole concept. But if you can learn to develop this skill, no matter where you're at, of just providing over the top value, what I find is there's been so many people in my life that have come in and actually executed that thought, usually because they buy into what I'm preaching and I build a culture around this. But if I, Eric Rock, am in a position where I have any kind of opportunity to give and I can't live without you, if I can't live without you, you become so invaluable to me. It's amazing how much power and leverage you really actually have. Some people in my mind were like literally equity. Like I could see it already that one day this is an equity human that has the potential to carve their way into ownership and infrastructure if they continue doing this, like operating this way. And those are the people that would allow me to free me up to go grow, to expand, because I could trust someone cared the way I cared, loved the way I did. And it's always in stuff like this. The green room story is a great connection between people that are taking unique ownership of something that they don't really have to. And that is one of these rare qualities that I constantly stumble across in people as you hear the start. What was the starting point? You don't always have to be the inventor. Sometimes you just need to become so invaluable to a founder that they can't live without you, and you get to rise with them. The journey becomes yours, and you guys go dominate the world together, right? But young people don't get this. They're so half-assed in general. And I say that's a blanket statement. I don't mean it for everyone. But trust me when I tell you, I've been around enough young bucks, and I was one myself. So many people don't go the distance, Bruce. This is already such a rare quality.
I created something called pride and ownership. I literally became proud of what the company was doing, and but I would see other people, and I get it. I don't begrudge any 9 to 5ers. I get
Not
it.
at all.
Most of the world are 9 to 5ers.
Yeah.
But people would see me, and even they would talk to me and say, "Hey, do you need help?" And I always give people opportunities, right? Because as I was carving my way, and I coined this term, I was an entrepreneur in a business. I was, an employee. I was getting a check, but I paved my own way. Like no one said, "Hey, here's your cubicle. Here's the content you need to create." They said, what do you want to do? Just do whatever you want. So I built out the ambassador programs and the athlete programs.
That's awesome.
And the wow factory, as I called it, learning from Tony Hsieh. And I just, whatever opportunity, I carved it out and created it. And people would see me, and I would say, "Hey, you want to join me? You're done at 5. I'm going to an event tonight. I'm going to a red carpet event. I'm going here. I'm going to go here." And very few people, only one person ever took me up on it. She was an intern. She took me up on it, went to a couple of events and said, I see the big picture here. She is now the CMO at a pretty big food company.
There it is.
And she was only maybe 22, 23. She was hanging out with me. So, but most people would say they want to. And then it was, my boyfriend, girlfriend saying, I got this, I got that. I said, listen, there's a price of being up. It's that and by the way, I think people were almost shocked. I would tell people on an average year, I would travel 40 weekends a year out of 52.
Wow.
The opportunity's there. And now fast forward, I mean, look what came of that by me doing that, right? I could have just been cashing a check or got sweat equity out of it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
What a separator.
Opportunities are everywhere. Yeah. It's
these are the separators.
Literally, and even I as a father, I have 4 young boys. My ear just caught like even that little father quip reference. You thought of your father early on, like, well, I'm on the payroll. It's almost like I don't know how it flashed across your mind, like, what would my dad want? How would my father want me to expect me to show up here or something like his.
Yeah, no, it was a work ethic thing. Like, oh shit, I'm really getting paid now. And even when it came to the equity, when they carved up the pie, mine was just sweat. I didn't write it. And same thing, how do you know when 3 guys get together and say, "Hey, let's start this widget company"? Who has any expectations going to become it may be nothing, right?
Yeah.
It's a
So
gamble.
I didn't write a check at the beginning, so I get it, but I earned everything I earned was sweat equity.
Sure, sweat equity
I
is,
love
is
it.
just as valuable as cash in. I mean,
Oh,
because
totally.
they couldn't have, in many cases they couldn't have done it without the sweat equity people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This
And
is a
one thing I
team
drive
effort.
home because one thing I drive home to people. Well, that's not an option in my company. And then they tell me they're in a real estate business or in a nutrition company. I said, who says it isn't?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Put in the extra time. If someone senior to you is doing open houses, we can say, I'll cover your open house for you.
yeah,
Do whatever it takes so that the partners see, here's this guy or girl who's going above and beyond.
Yeah.
Let's pull them up and make a partner of the firm.
Yeah.
It happens, and people would rather push back on me and say, no, those opportunities,
No,
that was a
yeah.
fluke.
There was a
And it's
psychiatrist.
not. There are opportunities out there.
Yeah, a psychiatrist I admire. He once said, "You want to be a success? Make your boss a screaming success. Doors will just sling open your whole life. Like
Yeah.
whoever's above you, make their world beautiful."
and I
mean,
this
they
has been
notice.
this has been one of the things that I preached for so long, because I've bought into this myself, is never be willing never be willing to not make someone else rich. Like I was
Yeah, you say
always
that a lot, yeah.
I was always so keen on that thought of recognizing where value existed or potential value existed, and being able to serve that, not thinking about myself. Because so often people will say, well, I don't want to keep making that guy rich. You'll hear a lot of that sentiment from people, and it's literally the most toxic thought on planet Earth. Your ability to not make someone else rich, like, it's so stupid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that is one of the game-changing concepts that I think, if you extract beneath the surface of what Bruce is telling through his story, is his ability to rise was really connected to this idea of taking real ownership of something that technically at that time he didn't have ownership of. But guess what ends up happening? He ends up integrating and having ownership in something. Like, people can't see this, but this is a good message for that reason. And I just think ultimately this is a message that maybe they don't teach in school, but this is one of these truths and separators in life that turns you into something different when you decide to take that extreme ownership.
Yeah, they definitely don't teach it. Matter of fact, I just heard recently, I don't know, there's even pushback from employees, basically like F the man, purposely slowing down, not doing even what they're
Oh
supposed to do.
yeah,
There's even movements
sabotage.
on social media. And I talk to people and say, listen, dude, I don't know what your mindset is, but I'm like with you, get your boss rich, make them disgustingly
Yeah,
rich.
yeah.
Now,
Absolutely.
does that mean it's going to trickle down? No, not always. I mean, sometimes there's bad owners, there's
No.
not great CEOs. I was just fortunate to have a really great founder that
Yeah.
truly saw the value in his team.
Yeah.
But, it's there. And, I can't drive that home enough. Pay your dues now. I mean, we were there for 9 years doing that grind.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, even the scar tissue that's built out of becoming someone that serves almost to a point that many would call a fault, but this idea really of becoming so valuable that someone can't live without you. The scar tissue and effort that you will and the person you'll turn into out of the construction of that type of mindset, it'll serve you for the rest of your life, no matter
the
go.
outcome.
It doesn't even matter. Like, it'll connect you to different people. If this guy is a failure on you and you've given everything to him and you're so valuable he can't live without you, trust me, there's a million other people that would die to have you in their world, because now you're building demand for you. Like, people don't understand.
Exactly.
Like, success is simply demand. People want what you got. I mean, it's that simple, really.
Yeah.
But people don't understand, especially this younger generation. You say that. I think every generation said it's the younger generation doesn't. Like, I don't know if my generation understands this.
Yeah.
It's all relative.
It's been going on forever. When I was in the Marine Corps, F the Marine. When I was a cop, they'd want us to write more tickets, and people, F them, I'm not writing. So it's no matter where you are.
It's an old idea.
And Matt could probably touch on it. It's a percentage of the population are always going to be like that.
Yeah.
The naysayers or the pessimists.
Yeah.
One thing, Bruce, at a distance, prepping for this interview, I admire, and some of the things I've heard you share and say is, and this intrigues me. I think a young person could glean a lot from this as much as someone later in life. Like, when you don't have to go after a thing or serve others, like the fires of necessity stop burning at your feet. You've had a successful life in various domains, yet you're still fired up to serve, contribute, grow, help others in your coaching and your work. How would you characterize, like, your drive? Like, what motivates you knowing yourself? Is it for its own sake? Is it a higher principle, the joy of it? Like, what drives you today? You don't need to do what you're doing, and you're doing it so well.
Yeah, I think for me, and I can only speak for myself, right, is I think I owe it to people to share, if even if it's changing one person's life, right? I think I owe it. And I like working hard, and maybe because I admire people like the Warren Buffetts of the world and the Rupert Murdochs, and these guys are just, they're deal makers. They're literally in their 90s and 80s and still
Yeah.
doing deals. And I don't see how you stop doing cool stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just yeah. When I see my friends retiring, I'm like, what do you do?
Yeah.
I'm up in Coeur d'Alene. I'm up in Coeur d'Alene fishing. Okay, that's cool, but
Yeah.
there's so many more things to do in life,
that would
right?
be torture to you, like restlessly sitting on a fishing boat for a week.
We see it a lot.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. A couple of days here or there. I just think I owe it to you. You only have one life, right?
Yeah.
And I think right now, self-doubt has caused me to not write that book yet, which now I'm working on, and public speaking, which causes me such anxiety. Like my heart rate will go up thinking about it. But I feel like I owe it to the world and the community to share my experiences, right?
That's cool.
It's not from a self-serving, narcissistic standpoint. Just like,
No, yeah.
hey, here's stuff I've learned, man. Maybe I could help you avoid these
That's awesome.
landmines and
Yeah.
do good things in life.
Yeah, not to be stingy with what you know.
I feel like it'd be
Yeah.
hard. It'd be hard to give up that burning desire to want to win and to have something that you're fighting for, even in retirement. Like, oh my God, that scares me. And I do. You want to know the honest truth? So many people, they retire and then they quickly die. Like I've seen it in countless places where the second they give up that thing that they don't live that much longer. Like I don't know what that is. There's probably health
and
reasons.
They have the
behind
best thing to give at that point, the greatest wisdom, the fruit.
Yeah. And we're on a roll. I mean, I didn't tell you this, but we sold Quest 3 years ago, and simultaneously we started a company called Legendary Foods, which I think I sent you some of the healthy pastries, right?
Mm-hmm. It was awesome.
Yeah, say more about
Alex
that.
Ramosi said this. Alex Ramosi said this recently. There's only been just slightly over 1,000 billion-dollar companies in the world. I don't know if that's true. I'd have to check it, but to think about that, Quest was a unicorn. It sold for $1 billion. Legendary Foods, I promise you, as we speak here, and I'll come on your show again in 36 months, it'll be valued at $1 billion.
That's so fantastic.
So two unicorns in a lifetime is, matter of fact, I think Elon Musk, there's like 4 people that have had more than $1 billion company.
Sure.
I mean, you have, Microsoft is a massive, but they've never created other companies. So, so that's kind of part of my thing too. Like, wow, I'm part of this journey where I could have had some level of contribution to $2 billion brands. That's pretty. Amazing. I think that's pretty cool, right?
Incredible.
No, it's rare. Yeah. It's rare to do one, let alone 2. So I'd love to hear the connections from how you jump from Quest to Legendary. What's the Legendary story?
Yeah.
So if you go back to the Quest creator and Ron Penna, Ron started Quest. He sold it. He started Legendary Foods. So the minute we sold Quest, we started Legendary the next day. The next day. And Legendary will be cool because we've learned all the mistakes we made at Quest. So now we've got chips, which we haven't sent you chips. We have the bars, the cinnamon rolls. We have chips. We have so many things coming out. And I tell people this: picture going to that Super Bowl party where you have all the the bad stuff, the Doritos and the cookies and stuff, and then there'll be the Legendary table with all the hot pockets and cool stuff. So we'll eventually get there.
That's amazing.
But we're changing the way, as we did at Quest, how the world looks at food and protein intake.
Yeah. So obviously your and Ron's relationship has been solid for all these years, and still, even after the big exit, like the personalities, it looks like you guys are still humble. You're still nose to the grindstone. You guys are still connected, and real, and maintain this beautiful relationship. Am I wrong?
He comes in every day. He's still responsible for R&D here, and he's here every day.
Amazing.
And a very humble guy. And
sounds like a good guy.
So humble that when we're out, because a lot of times towards the end of Quest, I think just from me being out in the community, people thought I was the founder.
You're right.
And maybe I was a little older, right? And I would be with them in public with the founders, and people would start talking to me and say, "Who are these guys?"
Yeah.
And I'd start to say they're the founders, and they would literally they were so cool and respectful. They said, we work for Bruce. And they said it with a straight face. And I said, you don't have to say it. No, dude, you really are the founder. You're out here. You're the face of the company, and I'm not taking that away from you.
That's cool, man.
Now, some CEOs would be like, no, he's just an employee. They were so cool about it. Like, no, you really are doing what you do. Like, how would I take that away from you if people think that?
That's a gift, man. Awesome. That's a good way to lead, by the way. That's great.
Yeah, for sure.
Great leadership skill and style right there. I love that. Yeah, you guys have worked at Quest with some of the biggest brands in the world, biggest names in the world. You literally have circulated in and out of the best of what Hollywood has to offer, all that. It's cool to be able to know that you're such a humble person through this process. as you're sort of building this brand and you're this communications guy out doing the hard work on the pavement, making sure that this is getting exposed to all the places where real influence exists, what are some of the tactics? And give me the setup of how you started building it out, the perception
like
of the public.
A product brand, is it?
Yeah, the PR. Like, give me the brand. I mean, so many people are looking to build their brand, the personal brand, the brand of their company, and on. So I know you got a ton of golden nuggets,
particularly with product. Like you can.
The product is easy. I mean, obviously you want to make friends, right? But I tell people this: fail fast. So what happens is see these people. I'm going to start a cookie company. And they get a website built, and they get a hold of a co-manufacturer. Say, I want this cookie. You know, let's just say it's healthy or not. It doesn't really matter. But they find someone that can make cookies for them. Okay, I'm going to do a run. It's a 50,000 piece order. They get all this stuff done. They do everything, and they have yet to have one human being try it. At Quest, we went through painstaking. Before I was even part of it, Ron had tested a website, put some fake orders out, canceled them. His wife, by the way, I'll backtrack, was making the bars by hand. She was only making them as like a protein snack for her girlfriend. She would do fitness boot camps and sell them there. Ron had this idea, wow, these are really good. Let me bring them to work. They had a software company at the time. The reason I'm telling you this is for a reason.
Sure.
He brought them to the software company, and the tech guys were like, damn, these are good, man. Can we try more? And, software guys are eating Doritos and Red Bull. So he's like, shit, I might be onto something. But my point is, they made them by hand. They tested them. They sent them out to their friends and family, got feedback. Oh, we need to change this. Okay, great. They didn't go out and do a manufacturing run. They didn't spend a dime other than built a website, tested it, then made the bars by hand. When I say by hand, at a kitchen space in the commissary, sealed them and sold them. First sold them. Wow, they sold. Okay, well, let's do another run. Made them by hand. Wow, we sold another 1,000. They did that for 6 months before they said, okay, we may need to buy some equipment and figure it out. By the way, we didn't plan on buying equipment. We were going to only be a marketing company and have someone else make the product, but no one else could produce it because the dough, you take the dough basically, right? And they want us to add sugar or liquid agave or something to make it more pliable. And we said, we can't do that. That would be like every other bar with a bunch of shit in it. So we ended up buying equipment. So what I'm saying is when people want to build something, whether it's an apparel, a drink, a food, test it out. If you're going to make an apparel company, get a couple shirts, get your friends to try it, get your friends to work out in it. Tell me what you like, what you don't like. People spend too much money and then they fail and say, wow, that was a waste of $500,000.
Wow.
So fail fast, get people to get the experience going before you even think about building a brand.
Sure.
That's one thing. One thing and this is no joke. I people laugh because sometimes I sent someone a product recently. I can't. A big deal. Someone I met at Limitless, and I said, the first rule I give people product. I said, you remember the first rule of Fight Club? And he was too young and didn't remember. I said, well, the first rule of Fight Club is we don't talk about it. Yeah. And I literally would give people product, and I'd leave a note saying, hey, I hope you enjoy. Please don't post about us. Or I'd say something to their face like, please don't talk about us. Inevitably, everyone talked about us because I didn't want you to. And that's another thing I give people advice. The company that DMs you, hey, can I send you some apparel? Yeah. And can you talk about us or post? It's such a turn. It's such a turn off. If you send me apparel and I like it, I'm gonna talk about it. I'm gonna tell everyone. I'm gonna tell all my friends. But when you ask somebody, it's just not the same thing. And I could tell you names. Ronda Rousey, we became pretty tight, and she loved our apple bars, and I would deliver them by hand to her, right? And one time she did a tweet and it got a lot of hits, and her agent calls me and says, hey, Bruce, I saw Rhonda did a post, we should talk about a deal. And I said, what do you mean? Like, she just posted, and he got a little aggressive with me, right? Yeah, so I called the assistant and said, hey, what do I do? Like, this guy's pressuring me. Rhonda calls him and says, hey, man, I post for my friends because I want to. I make plenty of money from brands that I do work with, but they're friends of mine. Quest is a friend of mine. Don't ever ask me that again.
Awesome.
I realized the power of those relationships. And I could tell you just name after name, Will Smith, Kevin Costner, these people that would try our product and talk about us on their social media or talk about us on their television shows. And we never asked a person to ever mention it. I wouldn't even say, please don't.
That's amazing.
So that's another thing. Build authentic relationships where people truly like you.
So good.
And as you know, people want to do business with people they like.
And I could be a living testament.
They would even settle for a less than, even maybe not the best product, but they're like, wow, I really like that guy.
Yeah.
I'm going to stay loyal to his brand because I like them.
Yeah.
I slipped this in there, but I could be a living testament to this point. I get asked all the time to do stuff, and I never do. I very, very, very rarely do I ever do anything that someone asks of me. But you sent me a care package, and I was instantly compelled to like brag about you, put your name out. I just love it on you because
Yeah, no, I
there was
appreciate
no ask. He just, it's just here it is.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
It's,
But
yeah, graceful.
I moved.
I'll never ask. Maybe it sounds kind of goofy. I like to surprise and delight people. Maybe that sounds kind of hokey, but
Yeah, no, I feel that.
if it comes back, great. If it doesn't, it's all good, man. We're gonna be
Sure.
friends. But
Yeah.
here's the cool part. Jessica Simpson, she's a big deal, right? She's not gonna talk about us, but her assistant wrote me and said, hey, she had a little get together at her house and her friends were there, and she was talking about Quest Days. She verbally told her friends about it and the moms and all the soccer moms. So to me, that's just as priceless, right?
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
talking about my brand to your friends and you're a billionaire? Cool.
Yeah.
I don't need to see it on Instagram.
Yeah, so good. That's a good lesson right there, for sure. 100%. Such a good lesson. Those are good investments to make, just
There
into
was
people.
And one thing as far as giving product, I always say this, and it doesn't matter what you have. I would give you a protein bar if I saw you in the gym, and I'd say, hey, here's another one for your friend, boyfriend, girlfriend. So, I'd always give someone 2 items.
Yeah, smart.
So,
Yeah, we interviewed Steve Pataski, great guy, and he was sharing a story about a local, very successful business owner, had a huge exit and started a tequila company. But part of his strategy was just to deliberately build relationships with a whole host of people that would just naturally be brand ambassadors, like to spread the wealth so far out of all these dynamic people that love the brand, and not so much like a PR campaign, but like kind of like that Jessica Simpson story, like they're just sharing with their networked friends.
A love campaign.
Yeah, a love campaign.
yeah, matter of fact, there's
spread love.
another thing, another tidbit. You might have heard it before, but if you can get a brand that gets 1,000 screaming fans, you're golden. You'll be a multi-million-dollar brand.
Yeah.
And that's what we strive for. We got 1,000 screaming fans.
Sure.
And all of a sudden, we're like, wow, we're hitting millions
That's
of
a
dollars
doable
now.
goal.
That's gold right there, actually. Yeah,
It's manageable, too.
Yeah,
1,000.
like if you could
it's
build
a lot, but if you...
Yeah.
Huh?
It's a beautiful insight. Like if you, rather than just aim at that.
Instead of 1 million, just get 1,000 loyal, diehard
great.
fans. I love that. It's simple.
Because here's the deal. I think about this. Like, okay, now if Eric every now and then thinks about protein, oh yeah, Bruce sent me a protein, or
100%.
so-and-so. Or maybe you'll tell nobody, but maybe you'll tell 2 friends at work, or maybe the employees that shared it will tell 10 friends.
Yeah.
It's the whole trickle down thing, by the way. I have a whole nother. It's a slide presentation where a FedEx driver came to our office back in the day, came to the front desk dropping off a box, and it was hot out, it was 100 degrees, and the receptionist was taking. I said, hey, can I grab you a water? And I got him a water, and he could use the restroom. When he came back from the restroom, I gave him a box of bars. And he said, what's this? I said, that's a mixed box. He left. About a week later, I just happened to see him in the parking lot again. He was our regular FedEx guy. And I won't bore you with the entire story, but it built out. It's almost like this Venn diagram. He said, man, I brought him home. My wife is a nurse at a hospital. She had already heard about Quest. She brought him to the hospital. 3 other nurses tried him. A surgeon friend of hers said, oh, I have a CrossFit gym on the side. He ordered him for his gym. My point is, I built out this whole program. She brought him to the club soccer team because I kept getting him product. He probably has single-handedly touched 400 people on behalf of Quest based on me giving him product.
Yeah.
But I literally tracked it with this guy because he kept coming in and seeing me.
Yeah.
And he would tell me the success stories. I thought, Jesus, that's I couldn't even afford that kind of marketing spend.
No.
It's true.
God, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
so the whole hospital's hooked on
1,000.
it, the whole gym's hooked on it, the whole soccer program. It was endless stream of just relationships based on me giving a guy 1 box of bars.
And if you have
$12.
1,000 like that, your company.
Yeah. It's cool to get the
So
backstory of Quest because I kind of was in the game as a young buck, just sourcing protein. I was in the fitness world my whole life, really. But it's cool to get a little bit of the backstory. You look at these iconic brands or brands that are household names in your life, and then you try, well, what was the separator? What made that company hit when many others you've never even heard of for many different reasons? Like, what are some of the separators? I look at a company that I admire today with Andy Frisella. And, you look at how he's building out his brand. And it's cool to know his start, too. His is a well-documented story. But the success of First Form is really powerful, too. But I think there's some important connections between even Andy, some of these iconic brands, and how they move product, how they get the masses' attention, how they brand themselves. And this is, I'm drawing a lot of connections now with Quest here, but they were just there before social media. They got there, they were there earlier than the whole thing.
Yeah, I know Andy well. This is one of his hats.
Yeah, I saw
First
that.
Form
That's
hat.
awesome. That's cool.
Yeah, I've been to the headquarters quite a few times.
Yeah.
That's a great band. People use the word culture.
Yes.
That's a place when you go, if you have the opportunity.
Yep.
Phenomenal.
Amazing.
Everyone knows your name, the gym. I've worked out there before, and the plates you have to turn them right side up. The numbers have to match. I mean, but by the way, it's just the way it is there.
It's so good. He just said something. We talking about what is culture. I was trying to explain this to a client the other day. Like he just said it. You turn the plate so that the numbers align perfectly. That's culture. That is high standards. This is how we do business. This is the demands of how we are going to operate this place. It's all in these small details in those details that to most people that don't matter, people that understand culture recognize that these are the details that matter most. You know what I'm saying?
It is details. As a matter of fact, because I've spent quite a bit of time at First Run, when they get out of your desk, they'll put the chair back in. When you go to the restroom, everyone wipes down the sink. So I thought it was a little I was like, everyone does it. It's just everyone. No one negates their duty. And I do say this: don't think because you buy a foosball machine and put snacks in your break room that's culture. That's nothing. I mean, you could still be a total raving lunatic. Because I've sat with CEOs and they'll say, "How come you created such a cool thing at Quest, and how'd that play out?" And they said, "I try and do all this." I said, "Well, first of all, your door is always closed. You're not welcome, and you come in the back of your building. That's the first step. You want to build a culture? Walk in your front door and say hi to all your employees. If you're avoiding your employees, there's a reason you're avoiding them, right?"
100%.
So there's this. I coach this. I'll just for his privacy. He owns a big medical practice, and this gentleman he flew to this conference, and this guy was talking about the upside of the 70s and 80s, and people had smoke breaks in it, and on smoke breaks, your team you just shoot the shit, you bond, and and it really actually built culture. And so he's like, we can't bring back smoking in today's culture, but what he did in his medical practice, he invested in, and this inspired my client who's now going to take some of these insights and build it into his culture building for his medical practices. But he basically, like you said, it's just not a foosball machine and chips. Most of his investment in his medical building, the most gorgeous rooms were the staff areas, and he has everybody have the same lunch break. So like the whole staff and team is in there. They're in a beautiful environment, and they're bonding and laughing and talking about their kids. They're talking about all these, and he's like, most build-outs of a medical practice would not justify this expense that I did for the team.
Not at all.
And it's like it bears so much fruit. I don't lose employees. I retain everyone, and they love one another.
Yeah, they feel seen. They feel validated.
Yeah, and my client, he was like, he went to this conference. And he came back. He's like, man, my break room is just fluorescent lights. There's not a damn window. They're all like, no one has the same break at the same time. But it inspired him because he wants to acquire a building and basically mimic that.
It's almost hard. You almost have to walk in and feel it to know what culture is, because it's not like culture doesn't happen because you say I got great culture. Even though there's CEOs that say I have a great culture, I'll say, can you tell me why? And they can't even tell me one thing other than, like I said, I got a foosball machine. It's really unique, and I've been fortunate enough to visit Nike headquarters at Reebok and First Form and Quest, and when you feel it, you feel it. Like there's when I went to Reebok. And the receptionist, my name was on the big screen. Hey, welcome, Bruce Cardenas. Like all the little touches.
They care.
When I go see, if you don't know Bedros Keuilian,
I know Bedros.
We're really good friends. When I go visit him, my name's on the fucking screen.
So good.
I'm always like, well, it's weird, but every little touch, a little gift bag. There's so many things you could do to make people feel welcome and appreciated, and just people.
This is gold, you guys.
I'm not going to get into them on the podcast, but you just gave me like ideas I need to talk to Eric about. Like, oh, we got to do this. We got to it's really it's true. It's caringness. It's thoughtfulness.
Yeah, to me, it's heart. It's soul. It's like that. And the big question is that need to come from the founder? You know what I mean? What if you're part of an organization, the founder doesn't have the gifts that are the things that you see? Can you create culture by being the one that chooses to take extreme ownership of this operation? I'm going to be the leader that takes it there. I see a lot of people that I think have a lot of talent, and they're trapped in a situation where there's a founder that's like, is toxic, is negative, but they can maybe have a good core business. Like, it's something that's really interesting to realize that so many people, they question whether they should stay in this or not. They have a lot of good intentions. They want to bring value to their business. Well, you had a great founder, but it was clear that you were like a wrecking ball. You're out there on the front lines, like demanding excellence, building culture along the way. I'm sure that relationship with the founder, that was probably very cohesive, but there's a lot of people that really are looking for what you're talking about in an organization that doesn't have it.
Yeah, he didn't. And by the way, he didn't interfere. But he wasn't the cheerleader out front. He just was the guy who supported it. But
Sure.
like we built out the ambassador program, and I said let's have a weekend, bring the ambassadors and the athletes. I mean, we just created those opportunities, and he just went with it. I think it's tough because listen, we money facilitates things in life. We all need a job, but I always tell even the employee, you could still take extreme ownership and do cool things, unless you just have a CEO that's like, dude, just do your job. And unfortunately, that happens, right? But if you have a leader, it's like, yeah, just run with it, man. I don't care. Run with it, man. When had the fortune, I met Tony Hsieh, who owns Zappos, and we spent a day together. And I went back and I built out. I had this big sign that said "Welcome to the Wow Factory" on my section of where I was responsible for. And then we said, we're here to deliver happiness. And people would come by.
There it is.
I mean, pro athletes would visit us and they said, I want to take pictures by the Wow Factory, man.
That's awesome.
It just was an experience, but I can't put my finger on what made it feel like that, but it just felt good.
Yeah. So someone can take the torch, say, you know what, I'm going to be the leader in this organization. It reminds me of like, we just had a great guest on this podcast, and we were talking a lot about culture, like in professional sports, what separates teams that actually win the Super Bowl, go to the national championship. I mean, it's a really powerful conversation, but I just got done watching that documentary that's on Netflix about Tim Tebow. It's the story of the Florida Gators, which I thought was a really profound story, because I remember the years when they were just hot, you know what I mean? They brought in this new coach, and it really took a deep dive into like the psychology of how they approached going out and saying, all right, we're going to win a national championship. Because number one, every college football team's saying that. Like how you could see the ups and downs and the massaging, but you can see when it finally hit at full capacity, and that's when they were winning and they were just unstoppable. It's a really great story. And I love Tim Tebow. He's someone that I look up to for sure. Maybe one day
my friend Patrick Schwarzenegger is going to. He's got a role to play him.
Oh, really?
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I sent him some chips, and I said, you got to eat more of these. You got to put on some size, man.
There it is, right there. See that little touch? It's a good touch.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard to describe what it is, but when it's there, it's an energy. It's like, it's a love. It's a feeling. It's so mission driven, and it's so far beyond the product. He says we sell happiness. Like, it has nothing to do with the product or service. It's so much bigger than that. Like, this is about life and death. Like somehow a great brand and a great culture will take you there.
They get into the heart of humanity.
Yeah, people miss this. They're so surface level and transactional. Yeah. It doesn't work that well.
One gem I heard once was that we all have the same client. It's just like human nature. Like, never forget that. Like, sell and love the human nature you're dealing with in the product and
exactly
human nature.
Yeah,
it's a good one.
Yeah, it's just the one client every company has, and just serve that to the. What does human nature want? It wants to feel appreciated. It wants to feel loved. It wants to love. It wants to contribute. You mentioned, Bruce, you're writing a book, and I always like to. I'm struggling with a book right now, but usually when someone endeavors to write a book, there's usually like kind of one idea they would like to impart to other people that they've gleaned in life, and there could be many ideas and stories, but could you speak to one of those? Like, man, because it's really, I think an earnest intention to write a book is it's out of care for others. You wish that they would get or understand or apply this idea or trust this idea. Like, what's one of those for you?
Well, first, I'm going to have someone help me because I was a CD student in school, so I need someone to help me write it.
Yeah,
but,
the actual technical writing. Yeah.
The best people were.
But so it's interesting. I spent a day with Bedros Koulian. We worked out and went to lunch, and he said, everyone in the world has a book in them, every single person, even if it's just a book your mom's going to buy, right?
Yeah.
He said, you probably have 7 books. He goes, I've heard you talk, and it really made me sit back and think, and shit, because my first book was just going to be my quest, my journey, right?
Oh, sure.
Kind of sum it all up, but I think there's one, and I'm actually carving it out by chapters of being entrepreneur in an entrepreneur's world. Business takeaways and kind of, tidbits on how to grow a business and how to build relationships. I don't know if there's per se one gleaming thing, other than I do know this. Relationship and relationship capital is paramount in everything I talk about. I say the right relationship is better leverage than money. Mm-hmm. And so there will be a theme in the book about authentic relationships and the value of them in any walk, any life and field, sports. Yeah. Doesn't matter what it is. Relationships. I think relationships carry us to the end.
Sure.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
you talked about the relationship capital and leveraging relationships in this world of content and people that are trying to figure out how to build their brands. How important is it to capture those relationships and be able to tell a story around it so that the public can kind of see that? I think deep beneath the surface, there is a truth to that. There's value in that. Like your ability to be able to not only see something, develop an honest, real relationship, being able to capture it and then tell that story, showcase that to the world. That is a really fully leveraging that relationship. And I'm sure you do it with care and love, but is that important? Isn't, I always describe myself as a midget perched on the shoulder of a giant. And it's sort of my capture, my very careful capture of that, delicately placed in the right place. That, again, eyeballs see this and they create perceptions and they form opinions about it. All this stuff I think probably matters, but how much does it matter?
Yeah, even as far as the content play and getting it out there.
Yeah, just capturing the content with these icons.
Because
really.
I've gotten caught up in too, and I sometimes have to take a step back and think, okay, I know just as many successful millionaires and billionaires that don't even turn on a phone. I mean, other than they don't have social media.
There's a ton of them.
I'm caught up in a little too much, when I'm at these seminars and Dan's like, hey, post here, content. And I think, well, before social media, I had great relationships, right? I mean, back when we had a Rolodex and, I still have those same great relationships. So I'm a little torn because I think right now, young people, when you get hooked on the social media, all you keep hearing is content, creating videos and
they're not
reels.
Relationships.
And I just don't know. I'm not really sure. I'm torn about it because I bet if I turned off everything, I could still call people I know and say, hey man, because I still have my bodyguard business, right? I have clients. They don't know me from social media. They don't even know anything about my nutrition days. They just know, hey, Bruce has a great service and we hire him.
Sure.
So I don't know. I'm a little torn on it because I'm feeling a lot of undue pressure to keep creating content.
I know, right? I get that. Yeah, it's the world we live in today. And again, like for the longest time, I thought I could do this old school. I actually literally had that conversation in the early days of social media. I refused to get on it, even for our retail businesses and our core businesses. I quickly realized it was such a mistake for me personally, at least with our retail business, because everywhere I went, people are stuck in their phones. And I remember thinking, if we don't do this, our business is not going to compete.
I remember Eric saying, I don't know what we were meeting for, but he was saying, like, I don't even get Instagram. What is this? I'm not even.
Oh, I hated it.
He made some like dismissive remark, like, I don't even get this thing.
Crazy.
And now he's got like this rip-roaring following.
Well, the trick I thought from in my perspective of this and what I developed is I realized children are addicted to it. They get these dopamine hits and they are hooked just like a cigarette or a drug, right? And so I could bitch and complain about the stuff that I don't like, and I could avoid it completely. Like my dad's a great example. He'll avoid all this stuff. He doesn't want to go near it. But I don't know if he's contributing to helping the problem by avoiding it. I had to make a clear decision in my mind that if I play this game and I step into the light, do I have a why? Number one, that's bigger than my insecurity. But number two, does the why carry the message enough for me to believe in it myself? Like, do I feel like there's a ripple effect, some butterfly effect where I'm actually affecting children positively, where there's a positive option alongside all the evil options out there? Somehow I do feel like when good men that normally would say nothing and women step up to the plate and put their heart out on the line and give everything they got in the same landscape where we think evil may be corroding young mindsets, especially young people, children. That's the biggest why here is this innocence, this protection of innocence. I don't think avoiding it is the answer. I think stepping into it, leaning into it, and saying, all right, I'll play this game too, but here's how I'm going to play it. I'm going to put a ton of energy and positivity and juice, and I'm going to be consistent with it. You have to make a big, bold commitment every day, and you can build a brand around it, and I think it can align with your core businesses, your real estate business, whatever it is. It can all align, but it is scary to step out into the light because you're so afraid of what people think. But these are just some of the takeaways that I have when I've considered, should I avoid social media? But I come down to this last thought, Bruce, and I'll leave it here. I don't want to overtalk this. This is your time, but it really came down for me of, do I want to be a creator or a consumer? And so many people, they just consume, but they never are creating. They're not putting out their truth. They're not putting out content in the world. And when I look back at people in history, all the way back to the days of early America, Ben Franklin, America's young history, right? These were actually creators. When you really think about the landscape of people that existed far before social media, some of the icons of people who we remember their name, not only were there great actions around them, but their name really meant something. They built a brand, and I'm convinced that if these people were alive today, they'd be master marketers online. They would be geniuses at social media. Ben Franklin, who's on the $100 bill, mind you, we don't know what businesses he owned. We don't know all the things he invested in.
He'd slay it on Instagram.
But we remember his name. Oh, he'd be murdering it. Yeah.
He'd
So
slay.
I don't know. These thoughts help me.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. That's so funny.
Ben Franklin. Just be like Ben.
I use that a lot.
He did. I think he was an entrepreneur. He did have a few businesses.
He had newsletter. He did all sorts of
printing shop
things.
and imagine where he'd be today with Instagram.
Well, we may not remember those businesses' names, but we remember his name.
Well, it's just like, again, looking at your life, Bruce, like you're so relationally driven with a pure heart, and you're such a connector. It does make sense now, whether you want to in the season of your life, what you want to prioritize. But man, if you could just translate that even further in a digital sense, you're like logarithmic. The Bruce effect can just go bop, 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 bop. Because if you work well,
I'm still a little. It's funny.
Yeah,
I'm still not as comfortable on camera. I mean, talking like this is fine, but like to put a phone up, hey, it's still a little like I feel a little funny sometimes.
Me too, though.
No, I get it. Yeah.
It's the world we live in, right?
That's a good instinct. I mean, like the Greek myth of Narcissus is that he looked at himself in a pool of water and he fell in love with the image.
I instantly got
right. And so that's Narcissus. He looked at himself in a pool of water and just like overly admired himself. So I think just to give us all human nature credit, Eric had an aversion to do it before he started. You have an aversion. So it goes against your wisdom sensibilities. So I think if you frame it in the spirit of service,
it helps.
Yeah, exactly.
I hate this.
Yeah, I know.
I can't even watch myself. I cringe. Like, I
don't like. Matter of fact, I've done a lot of I've done podcasts I've never watched, because I don't want to hear myself talk.
But
but the good news is everyone that's had levels of success in this arena, like the Ed Milet's and the Pedro. Everyone has said, when I first started out, I felt like a real, it was weird. And everyone has said the same. No one ever said, I'm amazing on camera.
No. Yeah, totally. So. Even Eric, I admire in his show. He'll listen to a show again just because he wants to improve as a communicator. Yeah, even though he doesn't have the time to do that, or really, he's not sitting there admiring the screen. He's like, you should feel sick when you look at yourself. It means you're not on the narcissistic path.
Well, good. Because I can't. I hate it. It's bad.
Yeah.
It bothers me.
That's a good sign, actually. So,
but I'm getting sharper because of it. I do feel like, I know when to cut it.
Yeah, it helps. Man, such a pleasure, Bruce. Before we wrap, I want to at least dip into this domain of your life because, security, guns, the whole instruction in that domain. Talk to us a bit about that.
Police.
Like, I'm a late adopter to. I didn't grow up around firearms. I now have firearms. I've thought about concealed carry. I don't do it, but I very much know a lot of friends and respect people in this whole space. What do you love most about the security domain? Bodyguard work, what do you love most about it? What is it actually like under the hood? Because I have an impression of to hire a bodyguard. I don't even know what that world is like.
I like it, as I said. I've always been in the service space. When I was in the Marine Corps, I ended up being on a security detail for a high-ranking general, so I kind of always had a feel for it, and it I don't know. It's just a unique dynamic. I fell deep into it when I was a young cop. I worked for a sergeant that was retired and started doing some gigs. And after a while, I was like, I could do this. Listen, a lot of it is boring, but a lot of it is logistical planning and processing and ingress and egress and making sure people are safe. One thing I've mastered, and I tell people this, is my communication skills. Most of it being listening. I said this recently. A reel I posted. I've been with clients for a week straight and probably have said 3 words to them because I have nothing to say because I'm dealing with their assistant. So there's a lot of planning, a lot of thinking.
Interesting.
But they really don't want to hear from you. I'm here to serve them. And when you're at that level, like I take care of a guy, he's a billionaire, right? He runs multiple businesses. He literally will get with me and I'm taking him somewhere and he's already thinking about where he's going the next hour, what the next business deal is. And I tell guys that work with me, don't mistake, we're in the service space. We're here to just serve them. We're not their friends. And I've lost a couple of accounts, believe it. And I could talk more in depth. I sent a guy to Mexico with J-Lo, and he just got too comfortable. When they came back, they said, man, Bruce, it's not you. Like, if we were at the restaurant, you'd be sitting at the bar for 7 nights straight. He decided to join us because we invited him to dinner. where I think a lot of people in the security space don't understand social cues. You have to adjust. Like just because someone says, "Hey, you want to join us for dinner?"
Sure.
No, thank you. I'll be at the bar instead to register. So it's a very unique dynamic, and very few people have long success because they end up pissing off clients or violating their trust or getting in violence their face. I've just had long relationships where I don't talk to people, but I deal with their assistants, and it's worked out magically for me. So
there's gold in that though. You're there to serve them, period. And
period. And I remind people, because my friends will say, "What do you talk about?" I said, "Nothing." And it's hard for me, right?
So here I am.
So here I am. I'm an extrovert in the nutrition space, right? I'm on podcasts. But then, matter of fact, I have a client in town right now. When I leave here, I'm going to meet him, and we won't speak. I'll make sure he gets to a meeting. He's leaving. He's going to go hiking, but I'm just going to be in the background. And it's hard for people to adjust. That's where I've really mastered the whole social cues, where you fit in. I almost call it like life is like a pecking order. And I'm okay adjusting to be in the back or in the front. Doesn't matter. But I do want to touch on firearms because you guys mentioned it. Switching gears a little bit. I was fortunate enough, one of my coaches in football took us to the shooting range when I was like maybe 14. So I was a real young member of the NRA.
Yeah.
Got my distinguished expert in small bore. I was the number one shot in the Marine Corps because of all that shooting experience. I've always been a big advocate of 2A and having guns. But I mean, as long as you're safe with it and you're smart, I mean, guns aren't for everybody, right? It's a personal choice. I do say this though. I have a lot of my friends, they bought a gun and said, "Have you shot it yet?" "No, it's in my dresser drawer." I said, just return it to the store. Either you're going to, you be proficient. If you're going to own a firearm, be proficient in it, right?
Yeah. Be comfortable with it. I agree. I think
be comfortable with it. But it's our right, and I hope we always will have that right. But it's a personal choice.
Yeah.
I don't push it on anyone.
Yeah. Intellectually, I think I should carry, but I just can't do it. I'm not comfortable enough.
Well, I think an armed society is a safe society, first of all. Number one.
The places you live where people can carry, like Texas and probably out where you are, everyone carry. There's no one's walking into a store with a gun because chances are you're going to be faced with a gun.
Yeah, it's so true.
If gun laws only are followed by law-abiding citizens, they become easier targets for criminals who, by the nature and definition of a criminal, don't follow the law. To me, this is a really simple thing to try to understand, and it really takes weapons out of the people's hands who need them most, who mean to do well, but people have if someone's breaking in your home where your dear family and your little boy or your little girl is sleeping, you would wish you were proficient at a firearm and you had it right in your nightstand and you could go in and protect your family. But no one ever thinks about what could actually happen, because if they did, oftentimes, if you really connected a real event, a life event, it may change decisions you make today. You know what I mean?
And I don't know if you saw, it's floating around social media now. Vince Rico, he lives in LA. It's been all over CNN, and he got in a shooting at his front door.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah,
So him and his friend, they run Trina's Kids. It's a charity I'm part of. He's friends with Dan and myself. He was 2 Saturdays ago. Guy walked up behind him with the gun at his front door and turned around and got in a shooting. But he said, and then he came and spoke to us that following day.
Wow.
He said, in a million years, why would I think I'd ever be involved in anything like that?
Yeah, he was.
And he had a brand new baby.
Food. He was carrying food. He was just walking up.
And he was armed.
I saw that clip.
He had a gun in his waistband. He threw the tea at the guy's face, so it kind of startled him. And then the guy had a gun. But my point is this: most people think that'll never happen to me. He lives in a $5 million house, gated in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I'm sure in his mind he thought, no one's ever going to do that. So it's a personal choice, but be smart. Because it can happen anywhere. It can happen in any state.
It's one of the gifts of America. America is a very young country. And if you think historically before America was just an idea, this idea of freedom. But these founding fathers that came from a worldwide history before America is what it is today, they decided to make the number 2 most important thing they were going to put in there, your ability to protect yourself. Now, people think it's from other criminals and other people. That is not what the Second Amendment was actually for. It was there to protect you from your own government. And when you consider history, the reason that was so important is because these totalitarian government regimes that come and go, constantly they've come and go throughout history. And then there's a revolution. There's a cycle of how this happens where government gets so powerful. But this was to be able to, for the first time ever, to really give people the power, because it's in that ability to defend themselves in their homes on private land, personal private land. This is what separated America from everything else. And look what it led to. It led to something so transformational and different that created the LeBron Jameses and Michael Jordans of the world. Like what happens in America can never happen in any other country in any other time in history. Like it was this place that made you able to come from the ghetto, from the trailer park, from the hood, from the bottom of the barrel, and you could rise all the way literally to the President of the United States if you wanted to. Only in America could that happen, but somehow it was the connection to the freedom of speech and that Second Amendment to protect yourself and your family that was actually one of the barometers that allowed a real freedom to progress forward, where opportunity became abundant regardless of where you were born or where you came from. That's what's so beautiful about this. But
it is amazing. Think about that. Guys just getting together in an old cabin with candlelight had such thought process of the future of our country.
They were genius, divine.
Beautiful. They even
and the things, and it's still, I mean, everything they wrote is like you're amazing how they thought about us down the road.
So principled. It's like a higher spiritual sophistication.
History's being lost too. These younger generations. I didn't know if our conversation was going to sort of pivot to the police world, which I'm curious your thoughts on. You worked in it for a decade. You know, I have a profound.
And I'm still a reserve with the sheriff, so I'm coming up on 30 plus years with law enforcement.
30 years. Wow.
Yeah, I loved every minute of being a cop. That was a boyhood dream. My uncle was a cop. My neighbor was a cop. I grew up, you know, the kid that wanted to be a cop, and I had no path to get there. But my police chief in my town, I used to bug him. I do ride-alongs with them in high school, and I'd be like, how do I get a job? And finally, a year out of high school, I'm putzing around doing odd jobs, and he said, listen, if you go in the Marine Corps, he didn't say anything. He goes, if you go in the Marine Corps, I'll hire you the day you get out. Grab my best friend and said, we're not doing anything in this town, man. Let's go.
Yeah,
and we went the buddy program.
Moment, yeah.
And then I end up in Camp Pendleton in California. I was at a powerlifting meet when I was still in the Marine Corps competing. And there was a career day on base. And these companies were there, IBM and trucking companies. And I saw the CHP had a booth. And I literally had a moment of like, wow, beautiful people, beautiful weather. And you can get paid? Shit. So and I'm going to date myself. There was no computer. I mean, no email. So paper applications. And a year later, I got accepted in the LAPD. And it's interesting, the time frame, I goes back to, I'm touch on relationships really quick before we go. The year I was waiting to become a cop, I was doing just job. I was a trainer at Gold's Gym, and I was working, and I saw an ad to sell cars in the newspaper. I said, yeah, why not? I don't know. I went to this, it was a brand new Mitsubishi dealership. I was the #1 car salesman for 8 months straight, and I never sold. I just was like, "Hey, you want to buy a car? Let's check it out." And so I went back to relationships, and they were really bummed because my background officer went and talked to the owner of the dealership to see how I was, and the owner's like, "Man, Bruce, you really want to be a cop? Because you could be rich in the car industry." Yeah. And I said, "I really want to be a cop."
Oh, that's cool, man. That is cool, especially in a world where cops have become under assault.
I can't hear Bruce for a sec. Bruce, speak, bud.
You there?
Oh, there you are. Okay, you.
Sorry. Yeah. It was an amazing. That was eye-opening to work in LA.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. A big thank you to all the police officers out there in the world. When someone is firing bullets this way, going that direction.
Yeah.
And everyone's running that direction, and there's these few people, special people that walk this way towards it. That's something really unique and special that should be really respected and should be well received by the public. But unfortunately, these last few years especially have just been really hard for police officers, and we're seeing these record retirements across the board. It's really scary to think about what happens when you dial 911 and police don't show up. That's a really scary thought. And you keep assaulting these officers and their character and all this. We've never had to make some of these tough decisions that officers have. I mean, they want to come home to their families. It's almost like, where's the incentive to be a cop anymore? Because for you, it was like being a hero, right? When you were a little kid, you wanted to be one.
Loved it, yeah.
We're killing that in America. We're destroying the nobility and the heroism that comes with being a cop. The media is doing such a good job at it. It's disgusting to me. There's been a little bit of pushback after it was so extreme, through some periods of time during COVID and whatnot. But I just
as you know, they wanted to defund departments, and now those same cities are scrambling to find millions of dollars to rehire cops.
Yeah, they're trying to hire back all the unvaxxed fired cops.
Oh, that's so sad. I saw the Navy's now trying to, and I said, you guys destroyed people's careers, and now you want them back.
Now you're begging them to come back.
How frustrating is this?
Predictable.
I mean, listen, it's still, like you said, America's the best place in the world to live, and I wish more people appreciate it. I feel like a percentage of our population thinks it might be better to live in Iran or Pakistan, and I encourage you to go visit.
do it.
Because it's not. We are the great, I mean, I tell people all the time when they start saying weird shit, dude, you wake up and go to Starbucks and walk to the beach and do whatever the fuck you want every day. Like,
I'm with
relax.
you. I'm with you.
The worst circumstances in America.
I will say though, this is scary. Like you look at what happens when the world's police and the world power of America becomes weak. You know, doesn't take care of her own backyard and her own borders and her own country. You see the weakness and quickly how it translates to instability around the world. I don't know how this ends well. Now, historically, we could really rely on elections to sort of be the barometer of a market cycle that the market doesn't like, and you can put people in office that hopefully change the trajectory. You can have a new temperament, a new personality, a new energy can be inserted. Well, now this mail-in ballot thing, I have to go there. I just always do when I consider where freedom exists right now in the history of, or are we going to look back and say, like, what are these pivotal moments? But with COVID, it really changed how I feel and trust about elections in general. Mail-in ballots, never ending in the middle of the night, and these elections string on for weeks until finally there's a winner. Like in all the right districts and all the right cities. So the illusion of freedom to me is something I'm very, very, like, my eyes are open to. Scary shit to me to consider this.
Yeah, if the common sense of the populace can't be the rudder of the country anymore, it's really,
that's the one thing we had to trust.
You could trust in like all just the sensible common sense of the American populace. If that's snipped, man.
Yeah. Well, me and my wife voted in Nevada. I've said this story before, but I haven't been registered to vote Nevada for 13 years ish. And that last election, we voted. And the only reason I know it, and I voted in Idaho, so I've technically committed fraud, and so did my wife. We got 2 ballots from the state of Nevada in our Idaho mailbox. Don't know how they got that address. It's weird. You think about how it has to look, and it bothers me when I think about the fraud that committed. Just with me alone, someone has to go pull old voter logs. So number one, that's called ballot harvesting, but it's a step further because I'm not registered there anymore. They had to re-register me in the state of Nevada. Then they had to find my new Idaho address. I've lived in several different places since then. How did they track the correct address? So I got a Nevada ballot, right? Well, I threw in the trash, and I remember calling my dad. I raised hell about it. I said, how the fuck? I just didn't understand. It bothered me so much, Bruce. Tore him up. I should have voted and sent it back. Fuck it.
Right.
Someone did. After that election, I called. I had to know. I called, and you could see. You can't see who you voted for, but you can see that if a vote has been cast in your name, if you're in a state where you're registered to vote, and sure as shit, there was a vote cast in my name, Eric Rock, and my wife's name, Jeanette Rock. To this day, that has bothered me so bad. There's no one. Who do you complain to? No one gives a shit.
No one.
It's sad. And so there you go. That's one little experience in me, but you wonder why the state of this country is the way it is. You got to be able to, and I think there's a large population of people, Bruce, that beneath the surface, we don't trust this shit. And that's scary. When Americans stop trusting freedom and stop trusting a process, we know how this historically ends, do we not?
Yeah.
I don't know, man, but
it's interesting.
We're fighting back. Like this, me and you doing this, Bruce, and Matt, like all of us, all this effort, stepping up. This is one way of, I think, of hopefully trying to influence younger mindsets to say, hey, don't buy into the bullshit. Like, trust me. Like, if you look up to me and you want a life like mine, like somehow that thread that I might have some sort of pull on a young mindset who doesn't know anything about history or how the world works, somehow I might connect you to say, hey, hold on, don't let this indoctrination teach you something that's going to kill you and keep you a slave. I don't know.
Yeah. Stand for truth.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's a happy end.
Yeah.
Right.
Bruce, it was so awesome to get to meet you.
You're amazing,
and learn more
man.
about your story. And
this
thank
is really
you guys.
cool.
Yeah, really appreciate it.
Matt, are you in the same town as Eric, or are you somewhere else?
No, we're both here, right here in Coeur d'Alene. We co-host this podcast, and then we actually co-facilitate a local personal development mastermind coaching group, like 55, 60 entrepreneurs. We meet weekly, so it's fun.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah, I've seen the post. I'll send you some more product for your crew.
You're amazing.
Oh, that'd be
man.
awesome. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Bruce. You're a gift, brother.
Thanks you inspired so many little gems. I want to integrate in what we're up to. So thank you for your contribution and your ideas.
Thank you, man. It's a pleasure being on here. I love being around like-minded people that are doing great things in the world, you know?
Yeah.
It's cool to have cool conversations with cool people.
I'm a man on a mission.